Hello, we have Becky from the Master's program here with me today to share a little bit about your story, about how you came to Business Tech Ninjas, where you were, and then also some great wisdom about working with just like highly technical automated systems because it is still kind of like a new thing in our world. Like the internet's not hasn't really been around that long. So there's challenges to that, and to share some of your wisdom about that. To start off, I'd love to just kind of hear like what's your role, and then a little bit more about the master's program as well, and then what were you looking for when you first started chatting with BTN?
Thanks, Melody. I am the director of operations for actually Priority Living. It's the umbrella company, but our consulting practice is the master's program, which you'll hear the most about. And when we came to BTN, what the master's program is about is we are a coaching slash consulting firm that works with high capacity men and women business executives, entrepreneurs who are realizing that they have all this success, but they don't have significance. So we come alongside them to help them try and find clarity, balance, focus, margin, figure out, let's get some white space in my life and balance it between all the areas that I have influence and impact on, and then get clarity on the calling in my life so I can focus on that moving forward. And so we take them through a 3-year program to do that, which involves both, we call it life mastery, body, mind, soul, spirit, children, or spouse, children, resources, as well as career. And then the last 6 sessions, we really focus on what's your calling. What is a unique gifting that you're bringing? We're a faith-based Christian organization. So what's the unique gifting that you bring to the kingdom and how it can help advance the gospel in a way that brings you joy and not just in writing a check. So that's who we are, what we do, how that happens, and why we came to Keep, and then ultimately why we came to BTN was we host quarterly meetings across the nation. Right now we are in 36 different, we have 36 different cohorts in about 8 different cities, both Zoom and online, with different meeting places, with different start times, with different, end times, all those things. And we do it quarterly. So basically it's 36 times, every times 4. So we have just right out of the chute without any editing and without adding anything else. We have whatever 130 plus automations that goes out with the reminder. Then I register, and then the follow up, and then, all those things with 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 emails involved in each one of those automations. And I started going to BTN because I felt like we were doing it just self-taught. And DIY, we did it pretty good for a season. Then thinking about scaling, thinking about getting to, 100 cohorts going on, this is not going to work. So I started looking around who can help me do this and be successful in that. And so that's when reached out to Melodie through, I don't know, a blog post or an email. Who knows? I mean, it's been since yesterday that we've done this, and
Years now.
it's been a few years now. Yeah, it's been probably 3 years. It was probably in the fall of
I think we
22.
I think we did some auditing and like went through your systems, and
Yeah.
you're a very smooth and steady operator of like, and very, very thoughtful. And it's something I really appreciate you of, like, you kind of like really thoughtful and very methodical with how you do
Yes.
things, and also the people that you work with too, which did make our work a little bit easier, I have to admit, because your
Well,
systems weren't as messy as what we can see sometimes elsewhere. And I remember initially looking at your campaigns being like, okay, these are good, but like if we just tweak this a little bit, then we can make it so that we can create a system where
yeah.
it's not like every time like there's just so much to change, because it's like we're trying to minimize down the amount of labor and also the room for error every time you run another one of those sessions.
Absolutely. And that's what you helped us do. And that was my pain point when I came in. The second pain point I had that you guys have helped me is just understanding Keep and the processes that can help, and Stripe and how they all talk. And even on my website now, we expanded service. First it was just Keep, and then we've rapidly expanded those. And you've helped, BTN has come along and helped me figure out when do I use a promo code, or when do I use a new product? What makes the most sense? And then systematizing as much of that as possible, even to if a member drops out of one of the cohorts. Before, it was just an email went to George, and George had to remember to tell Susie, and Susie had to make sure that Henrietta did it.
Yeah.
It was, and so no, you guys help us build an entire drop TNP process, is what we call it. And now the app person gets notified, the billing people get notified, the class director associated with that cohort everybody gets notified by filling out one single form that they can walk through, an internal form that you help create us and keep.
It's just nice because like the mental load of when you get complex, like even at the point like at that point in time when you first came to us, you were still growing at that point, and you've grown quite a bit since then. But like even
Yes.
at that point, like the mental load of just trying to remember all the things, and then you want to grow it from that point in time. So that only gets worse as the business gets bigger and bigger. So it's like you want to put good systems in place. And I would say probably around that 800,000 mark, and is definitely at like that $1 million mark, like that's when you're really scaling up, and it's like it doesn't get better at that
No,
point.
no, it doesn't. And so it's been so, those tools, and what I've always loved about BTN, and, I could give examples that you guys really serve as consultants and not just contractors.
Hmm.
Because I've often come in because I think I know what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, guys, this is what I want to do. I want A, B, C. And instead of you guys saying, okay, fine, we'll go to A, B, C, there's enough of a relationship between the two of us to say, Becky, that's great. But actually, if you do C first and then we do A and B, it's going to make more sense and a better flow for everybody involved. Are you okay with that change? And so I appreciate that, because you guys are the experts in the
Hmm.
systems. I'm getting smarter, but you guys are the experts in the systems within Keep, and how to run in that process. And so that's always, that's such a benefit to me. And even to the point of, okay, here's my problem. We've now gotten to the point after almost 3 years of being together, or almost 2 years, that I can come and say, okay, this is what we want to do. Here's a cocktail napkin. This is what I want to do. You know, what do
Yeah.
we need the answers for? And you guys have helped build that process and turned around on the backside so effectively, and made us even more efficient in what we're doing.
And the other thing on our side is that you're also open to receiving advice and like recommendations. Like you don't always take the advice, you don't always take the recommendations, and that's never the underlying, but you're always open to it. I
Mm-hmm.
remember when we were looking at wanting to have a membership site so that people that are going through the cohorts, it's like that it would just be a much better user experience if they could see that page. And like when we were initially working together, we had to redo all of like the automations. That was a focus. And then
Yep.
we kind of got that stability with like the day-to-day things. It's like, well, how can we really optimize and make this better and then really create that exceptional experience? Because in an ideal world, people would keep renewing year over year for your program because it's phenomenal. And like, there's never, I keep saying to myself, like, this personal development book, this will be the book that fixes me.
This will be the magic bullet. Yeah, no, I wish.
Never, never happened though. And
No.
I've given up that dream now.
Yeah, right. But and I think that it's so true. And so again, that the membership site it wasn't really on my radar. I thought, no, that's way too big and all that stuff. And you guys said, hey, we just took some time on the side here,
Mhm.
and we built a mock-up of this. And I really think it's going to come to fruition in 2025. Lord willing, it's going to happen. And so, um, it is. I say this to my staff that's involved in a little bit of the key component of it, and I say it often to the BTN folks. It's the expectation is perfection, and
Mhm.
that is a heavy burden to carry. But that's our goal, and that's our expectation. It will never happen. But I don't want to walk into this with, we're going to get it right about 95% of the time. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
or 90% of the time. It's like if you walked out and every 10 days your car didn't start. You're like, oh, this is no. I mean, this is not
Oh no.
acceptable. So it's never acceptable to have mistakes, but the expectations are,
Yeah.
we will.
And what's really interesting to me, because we have dozens of clients, we work in different capacities in different places. And so from my perspective, running the company, kind of just like looking at how the different interactions between clients and then my team and then clients and then their team. And I have a fascination with you, I have to admit. Um, and because the way that you work with me and the way that you work with my team, you are able to produce even a better result
Mm,
than others. I mean, we always produce a great result, but there's also this level of just like ease and happiness and fun with it. Because we're like
mm,
stuff is happening consistently.
yeah.
Like it's not like easy street, like, oh, we didn't do anything this week. It's like there's consistently growth, there's consistently things happening, there's launches, there's all this chaos that's there, but it's managed in such a way that it feels fun. And someone on my team said to me, she's like, I love the work. Like that looking at the work and untangling the work is really fun, but sometimes what can be challenging is the relationships that are involved in
Yes.
that and the
Yes.
drama. And when we're working with you, there's an element of what I see with other clients is just like, how do you handle it when things don't go right? And how do we handle it internally? And I'd love to share that. And but
Sure.
it's somewhat how we handle it, but there's also that relationship between a client of how you show up for us, because it is like, yes, you pay us, we provide a service, but it's still a relationship.
Yes. Yes. For sure. I probably about three things for sure on that. And one, it just triggered yesterday. I had a friend that had flight issues. Shocking, right? They got canceled and they couldn't figure it out. And we were all sitting around the dinner table, and somebody else who also was on that same flight that had the same issue. She said, "I'm not in California in the fires. This is overcomable." And I really, what we do is important, is critical and fantastic. And I love what we do. And we are changing lives. And, business is happening, growth is happening. Every family represented between our teams are impacted because of our success here. At the end of the day, this is not life or death,
Yeah.
And so that helps, having that perspective. And for me, it helps me not say, blow up necessarily. So I think that's just keeping the perspective and mindfulness that we are. Number two, it is uh, very, very clear expectations. I believe that I help the BTN team, and my team helps the BTN team, because we are very clear about what we want and what we need.
Hmm.
And it is not just, well, I'm thinking about this. I mean, we really, really make it very clear, and I'm not wishy-washy, and I'm going to be a yes and a no on those. And so that really helps, so we know, did we make it or do we not make it?
Hmm.
And then I think the third thing is extravagant appreciation. I've been so blessed you guys have jumped through the hoops on so many different things. And I want to appreciate the hard work as much as the going above and beyond than what the paycheck is. And I can remember something specifically, one of your um, team members like kind of pushed through the weekend and made things happen that was not, it was way far above and beyond. And I hit you up in Slack. I said, what can I do to show appreciation to her? In the real world, if we were working in the same offices, we would take them to lunch, right? So we could. And you gave me a specific thing to do. I did it, and I also know that team member will have my back forever.
Hmm.
And I trust, and that's where the relationship comes in. I trust when a mistake has happened, it's not incompetence and it's not intentionality. It's just an accident. And when I demand something, if I'm demanding about it, it's not because I'm just a mean person and I didn't get my stuff done. I'm demanding because this is critical and urgent. And because we have that trust level, then we can
Hmm.
have that communication that's involved in that. So,
And if we think about like the other side to it of it, it can be frustrating when it is frustrating when things go wrong. There's just no doubt about it.
oh, for
Nobody,
sure.
but nobody likes that. Like
Yeah.
nobody's happy when a site goes down or emails get sent out incorrectly or something along those lines. And I think, I feel like I've made this mistake a lot as a business owner as I've matured over the years of I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
they need to feel the pain. They need they need to know that they've messed. I want to put their face in poop and I want them to feel the pain. And it was only after like a while, I have to say I was a slow learner on this,
Right, right.
that it just wasn't working. Like
No.
I it like they didn't they didn't listen to me. They didn't make any
Yeah.
positive changes. If anything, it just demotivated. And you know what they did? They just checked out.
Yeah. Right.
They
Which is
just
worse because then they
it's
become neutral.
yeah, they're like, all right, well, there's nothing I can do. This problem happened. Oh well. And we are an agency. I employ people to work with your company. So it like there is a responsibility there on my part of putting the right people in place, but I also have a responsibility to my team to chat with business owners and say, hey, like we can only take so much on this.
Hmm.
Like if
Hmm.
every like this mistake, it was like there was like let's just use an example of, sometimes on emails, like a little bit of text needs to be replaced, but it needs to be replaced in like 70 different places.
Right.
And so
Right.
like the error rate for that is quite high of just like
Well,
missing one. Like we can have all the checklists in the world, but like it's just high on that.
yes.
But it's
Yes.
also like the consequence of that, not that big. It's like
No.
somebody saw some text on that they weren't supposed to see. It's like, all right, I think it's going to be all right. And so it's like just judging that reaction of
Hmm.
somebody that is consistently just blowing up about something like that will
Hmm.
demotivate my team and probably demotivate their own team too.
For sure.
And and my point here is that it's like you get more from people when you appreciate that there is an 80/20 rule without,
Yes.
again, like the goal is always perfection. The goal is
Always.
always to get it right 100% of the time, but we're all human.
Yes.
And to
Yes.
give that
Right.
to give that grace will
Hmm.
mean a lot. And then, but like what advice would you give to somebody? Because somebody could say like, well, they messed up and I need to know that they're going to not have this happen again.
Yeah. You know, I think that it's the biggest advice I would is give is be mindful of what's happening, track it, and then find out. I've had to fire vendors,
Mhm.
and it's like so I'm going to tolerate it once, twice. I mean, Melanie, we've worked through transitions where it's like, okay, this person, it's not cutting it,
Mhm.
and I'm fine, you're fine, we're all fine. Let's move on, even if we get behind on other things. The energy and effort that goes into this would be the real challenge. And I think it's also looking at myself. Okay, every single time the ball gets dropped or a mistake happens, was there something I could have, it's not just always on the vendors. It's not even always necessarily on the one person within the vendor
Mhm.
organization that did it. Was there something on my end that we could have done? Could we have greater clarity on that to continue that communication? And so that's what I would say too.
And what we do internally of because like I will drive myself insane if I try to get everything to be perfect all the time. Like there's just no amount of controls that you can put in with the complex systems that we work in that you're gonna get that level
Exactly.
of certainty. Like in any bit, like I mean, maybe if you have a really, really simple business, maybe, but even then, I wouldn't put my money on it. So
Yeah.
internally, and then what has honestly saved me some sanity personally is like, what is the expectation when something goes wrong? Like, number one, ownership. We
Yes.
messed up.
Yep.
We
Yep.
messed up. Okay, what do we do from here? One, you got to fix it as soon as possible. It's none of this like dragging it out or pointing fingers. It does not matter. Something went wrong. All hands on deck. Let's fix it. Let's get it
Yeah.
fixed as soon as possible. And then the second question is there a retroactive fix that needs to be put in place? Of
Hmm.
let's say an email got sent out incorrectly, fairly common. I mean, not at Tech Ninjas, but for
For
other
other
people,
vendors,
for
other
other
people,
vendors, let's
others.
just say. So one, like, what's that retroactive fix of does a correction email need to go out? Like, and it's not always something on my team. Like sometimes people give us the wrong links or give us the wrong information, and it's like an email went out incorrectly. And like, even in that instance, even if it wasn't my team, it's like all hands on deck. We're in this together.
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
how do we make this better? So
Right.
then that retroactive fix. So usually an email would need to go out, and I always like to think of it like, how do we turn this into an opportunity too?
Yep.
Of like,
Yep.
okay, this is a chance to engage. And then the third part is how do we prevent this in the future? So
Hmm.
one of the things that we noticed at BTN is that a team member made a mistake where in Keep, you can just drag a line straight across, but visually it's really easy to miss a timer and not actually connect the start from the timer to the email. So it
Yep.
happened once where a team member made this mistake and didn't connect it correctly. And I was like, okay, we this not can't happen. Sorry, no.
No.
So
No.
now if you look at a BTN campaign, you'll always notice there's an up down on all of our sequences and timers. And
I
the
do
reason
notice that. I wondered why.
well, the reason why was because you can't miss if a timer is not connected correctly.
Yeah,
Since then, we've had zero
that's
instances of that
fantastic.
problem since. So it's
That's
like that
fantastic.
proactive fix of like working with you to say, okay, hey, had because we cannot think of everything, but what we can
No,
say is we made this mistake, and how can we assure you that in the future it's not going to happen again? Because like I think
right.
as a human, that's all I really want to know. I want to know you
Yeah,
have it handled.
yeah, exactly. A line I like to use is continual pursuit of excellence.
Yeah,
And if we go for a continual pursuit of perfection, we never even kind of get close to that, right? I mean, that's going to be frustrating, banging
kill
your head
ourselves.
against the wall. And yeah, but a continual pursuit of excellence is where we can be, and we can say, okay, these are excellent, but then it's excellent, but how do we even make it better? I know this year our 34 times 12 automations that we're going to have this year are going to be better in December that we run them than we do now, because we are still continuing for excellence, both on our side, like what's the content, do we need to send them all those links, is there an easier way to do that every but then also on the BTN side of automating this? Is it easier, instead of looking at a Google spreadsheet, which I'm doing right now for all the different components? Is there a better way to do that using
Oh,
the
you know
ClickUp
I want to
form?
move you to ClickUp with that sheet.
I know you do. I know you do. We're learning. So, anyways, that is maybe this year, Melody. Maybe this year we can move. We can move.
I
So,
love
yeah. So,
it
100%.
really just does become fun when you
Yeah.
take it on that perspective of apparently my dog agrees. He never barks except for this very moment apparently. Um it just becomes fun because it's like, okay, hey, how can we make this better? And it's like
Yeah.
it's a creative game at that point.
It really is. It is. And that when we have trust with one another, when
Mhm.
we appreciate one another, when the expectations are clear, so we've checked that off, so we know we've done this 80%, let's now take the 10% extra that we have this month, or 20% extra this month, or this week, or this phone call, and let's just tweak just a little bit and continue to pursue.
Thank you so much, both for your, trusting us with your technology because, like, that's one of our taglines, and it's something that I feel really strongly on because it's like most of the businesses that we work with, like, their technology is not just something, they don't just have a website. Like,
No,
it is their business. Keep is
100%.
your business. It like
Yes.
without that, and so the amount of trust that you put in us to have a hand in that, I take very seriously, and it's why we care so much about me like having the right people in place and making sure we're making the right decisions because it is a trust, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. It's my joy. I have a great fun with your team.
Thank you, Becky.